Action. Nothing was ever going to be the same. Danger.
If I slip up or if I turn my eye for just 1 second, someone could get the drop on me.
Adventure.
The Amazon River, they have a version of everything in North America except bigger and scarier.
You're listening to Sea Story.
Episode 33, Gideon.
My name is Josh Bloodgood. I'm a religious program specialist. I grew up in Longmont, Colorado, and this is my sea story. When I was first being recruited for the Navy, I was sold, and my parents were sold on the fact that the Navy is a family. I really liked the idea of that, but I never really understood what that meant until almost 4 years into the Navy. What happened at my second tour in Sasebo, Japan, my wife got pregnant. We were really excited. We got closer and closer to my wife being due. Some complications began to arise, and here we were thousands away from any friends and family, and we were still fairly new to the command and unsure of what to do, how to take care of our oldest son at the time. My command really stepped in and had our back and made sure I was able to visit my wife as much as possible while she was in the Japanese hospital. When my son was eventually born, he ended up being born with a really rare syndrome called CHARGE syndrome. That's a leading cause in blind deafness in newborns. We learned that not only was our new son unable to see or hear, there was a whole list of other birth defects affecting everything from his heart to his ability to breathe, his ability to swallow. And so just like that, we were medevaced from our home in Japan back to the United States to receive the proper care that he needed. At that time, there was really no idea what his prognosis was like. There were so many concerns. The first few months of his life, he had received 7 surgeries. And he spent the first few months of his life in the NICU, and there's all these doubts about what he would be able to do. One of the doctors, just trying to prepare us for the worst, told us to never expect him to sit up on his own, much less walk. There were thoughts about his vision. It was one of the worst cases they had ever seen, and his hearing was profoundly diminished. Essentially no hearing at all. It was just optionless. Of course, my main priority was my son and then my wife and our oldest child and make sure they were taken care of. But there were thoughts in the back of my head about, how can I be in the Navy while having a son like this? It just seemed like it was going to be a full-time job just taking care of him. And that sounds really selfish, but the Navy let me take care of my son. They let me go TAD and really focus on my family and get myself together. They supported me and my wife in getting counseling as we learned how our new lives would function. The Navy got us a social worker to help us set up with different resources out in town to make sure that we were taken care of and had all the supplies that we needed. In addition to respite care, the Navy has provided 40 hours of in-home nursing care to this day. So my wife and I can have some date nights every month. And it allowed us to just kind of work through our own personal issues, kind of being in this unexpected area, because you always kind of dream of your kid and the future they're going to have, and you never really prepare yourself for, that future not even being an option. And so they allowed us to kind of go through that mourning period. We've been able to meet so many other families. They have a child with the same syndrome, and they're not affiliated with the military, and their stories sound and look vastly different, and it seems a lot harder. And so having the support network and the Navy family has just made a huge difference. Since that time, not only have I advanced in my career and completed my degree and applied for officer programs, my son, who's now 6 years old, he's in school full-time. Just recently, he became a candidate for these hearing devices that allow him to hear. He excels in ASL, as his vision is much better than expected, and he kind of skipped the whole walking part and went straight through running. My son's name is Gideon. The biblical meaning for Gideon is mighty warrior, and the story of Gideon in the Bible is a guy who went into a battle with a very small army, facing an army of thousands. Against all odds, he triumphed. And when we decided on the name Gideon, we had no idea at that time that he was going to have the life that he was going to have, that he was going to have any birth defects at all. But it's been such an appropriate name for him because against all these odds that were stacked against him, he's faced every day with a smile and determination, and he just goes for it. We would not be where we are today without every single sailor and every single person in my chain of command over the past 6 years that have cared enough to care about my family at home. That's what a Navy family does. It walks with you and doesn't leave you to the side just because you have a difficult time, or whether it's in your personal life or professional life. Family's always there. Family is there in the good times and the bad times, there to give advice. They're there to provide correction if needed and to be honest with you. I have found that consistently in the Navy. If you like my story or want one of your own someday, subscribe and give Sea Story 5 stars.
Coming next.
And around the corner come President Obama and his wife, Michelle. Realizing that I've got full access to this place, and it's not uncommon to run into the President and the First Lady just as you're doing day-to-day business.
Sea Story is brought to you by America's Navy. Learn more at Navy.com.